Look at that. Starting to grow. It smells like cabbage. I think we got some compaction issues in this field. There's some purpling on the leaf. Good morning, it's Saturday. Haven't had the camera out for a couple days. Yesterday, Jack and I worked on the air seeder to make it automatic, a little bit more automated, with a clutch control, a system that automatically turns the metering rolls on and off. It started with the lift switch so that when we lift the drill, it would quit mapping on our display. And then it turned into adding a clutch control module we had laying around and doing some fancy wiring. And it was a little bit more complicated than both him and I anticipated, but we got that done yesterday. And the day before, I believe we were doing some other stuff as well. Nothing too critical, just cleaned up the air seeder from the oats I planted. And the day before that, worked on Sandy's feed cart, which was not fun at all. Probably would have had to censor most of the video because it was not the nicest thing to work on, but we got it fixed up too. So just kind of some small odds and sods jobs, and it's been quiet. We got about a half an inch of rain, which was nice. We needed it. It looks like it's going to be nice again coming up here. And I think we'll just take you on a quick crop tour because some people have been asking about what my winter canola looks like. I want to look at my wheat because I think we need the second app on it here shortly of nitrogen, and maybe take a look at some of the corn we planted on the 25th of April and see if it's coming out of the ground. So, well, it won't be coming out of the ground, but see if it's sprouted. So that's the plan. So let's go for a ride. Okay, we'll start in the cornfield here. This is the first one I planted. Was the field that we had tiled, and it's a little damp still. We got, as I said, half an inch of rain. 12 mils, and things are not really muddy, just a little tacky. So you can see the soil is a little darker in color than when it's dry, but some of these little clods are grayed off is what we call it, or dried. But we'll get in here a little bit because I changed some planter settings, so I want to see what it's kind of like over here a little bit more, and we'll dig up some corn. So this is a row that was just planted. You can tell just by the way the soil looks. And I can finally see trench here already. So I'm just trying to scrape the soil back lightly, and actually found a seed. So look at that. I'll try to zoom in on that. So that's planted the 25th of April, which is about a week ago. And considering how cool the weather kind of was and the soil temperatures at the time, that's a good start. I'm pretty happy with that. We have some cloud cover this morning, but it looks like it's going to clear off, I think. It's supposed to be a little bit warmer today and tomorrow. So I'm really happy we do have this corn planted. It was the right call to make. It's hard to know that until after the weather front moves through, but it looks like we made the right choice, and it's off to a good start here. I'll maybe dig some up and try to show you while I do that, and you get an idea how I do it. Nice little corn seed. I broke the root off it right there, but it's starting to grow. Good sign. We have some cooler temperatures coming up after the warm weekend here, so they're talking upper teens for temperatures. That's Celsius. I don't know what that's Fahrenheit. We haven't really even had a 20-degree day yet, which is not, that's pretty uncommon. Usually we do get a couple warm days here, but I'm hoping they're coming. And what happens is the corn's probably going to slow down growing a little bit. This stuff will probably take a couple weeks to come out of the ground. 2.5 weeks, my guess will be, just because of the cold weather. Now we're in the canola. I'll be honest, I haven't walked a canola for a bit. We had a young lady living with us, for a friend of the family, for a couple months, and she's pretty good at agronomic stuff, so I got her to walk my wheat and my canola here, so I haven't really been in it. She kind of gave me a scouting report, so I figured I better check it out. And Wow. Looks pretty good. And it's taller than I thought. It's really starting to shoot up here. And it smells like cabbage. It's in the same family as cabbage. It's in a family called the Brassica family. And it's got that cabbagey smell, but it has some volunteer weed in it still here, but usually they say the canola is pretty competitive. This is a non-GMO canola, so it's not Roundup ready, and there's limited herbicides that we can use to spray, so we kind of try to make sure the field's clean before we plant it in the fall, and just hope the canola is aggressive enough in growth to kind of outcompete the weeds, and it seems to be. It's looking pretty good. I don't know much about canola because I've never grown it before. It's got a nice dark green color to it. It's got lots of nitrogen and sulfur. So when you look at the canola plant, there it is there, and it's starting to do stem elongation and bolt, I guess is what they call it. You can see here the flowers, or the buds, are formed. So those will keep growing up, and then they'll actually start to open up, and there'll be a yellow mass of flowers in this field. So I would put the height of the canola at around 30 centimeters, maybe a bit higher. 12 inches, 14 inches high. And I'm assuming when we get this kind of warmer weather, they're talking on the weekend, it's going to really take off. It's actually growing a fair bit in the last week, I would say. So looking good. The only fear we have right now is that if we get a real cold night or early morning and we get a heavy frost, it could impact those buds that are starting to come up and flower, but we'll keep you posted. And I think once it starts to flower and is yellow, it's quite pretty to look at, and I'll get the drone up and we'll do some drone footage of flowering canola. This just in one of my later planted wheat fields. It's one of my tougher ones, just from a fertility standpoint, and I think we got some compaction issues in this field, so once the wheat comes off, it is actually one that's going to get disc stripped. Even though I want to be all strip till, we still have to fix some of these issues and get the farm in the right condition before we can do strip till. So it needs a little love. We've been working on it. This is one of the fields I put extra fertilizer on, the wheat, and it's going to need another shot of N here shortly. But I just wanted to come out and take a look at, see what it looked like. The big thing I want to do here is actually count tillers, just see if we actually increase tillers. Right now, the first scouting report that Lauren did for me back about 3 weeks ago, it hadn't really started to tiller. There wasn't very many tillers. So I want to take a look at that. Looks like we're in stem elongation mode now too, which means we can do the second app of N. It shouldn't be as impactful on height and drive too much vegetative growth. So it looks like our timing's about right for a second app. And if we want to do some growth regulators on it as well, this farm I don't think we have to worry so much. There's a couple varieties that we are probably going to put a growth regulator on because it's very tall. And last year in my other wheat videos, you could see that wheat actually fell over and lodged, and it's really hard to combine. So that variety, it yields well. It's just tall and weak in the legs, we would call it. So it's one that we'll probably try to get a growth regulator on. So lots to do with the sprayer. Kind of feeling the pinch on that a little bit. I think if we can't plant tomorrow, I actually might get the sprayer cleaned out today and switch back in and start doing some 28, the second apps of 28, and get that out of the way. We'll dig some up and I'll show you what tillers are. So here's the wheat plant, and what I mean by tillers is that this would be defined as the main stem on the wheat plant, and then these kind of stems that go off the side here and here are defined as tillers. So we actually did a pretty good job here. It was only, well, there was 0 tillers a little while ago, about 3 weeks as I said, and with that early shot of nitrogen we were actually able to get the plant to pump out a couple more tillers, and hopefully those turn into wheat heads. So when we put a wheat seed in the ground, like there you can see what's left of it, we create kind of one main stem, and then the tillers, as I've said, we hope to get out of it. So the goal here is to get about three tillers per plant. We got 2, which is not bad considering the conditions that it was planted in, and we really do need to get that second half of N on, because we're starting to move the wheat head. When wheat heads, it starts down here in the crown and goes all the way up till it comes out the top of the wheat plant. So we're starting to move that wheat head now from down here up here. So it's time to get that second app of N on. So we'll go look at a couple other wheat fields, maybe one that was planted early, and you can see kind of the difference between what an early planted wheat field looks like and a later planted one. So this is my very last planted wheat field. It was kind of the field where I was like, oh, you know what, it's pretty good out still, maybe we should plant some more wheat. And I'm glad I did, because in all honesty the price of wheat's pretty good. Our other commodities that we grow, like soybeans or corn, the prices are a little tough on them, but wheat's pretty good, so I'm kind of happy we got as much wheat planted last fall as we did. This field here, we'll just take a look, see how it's doing. It's a good variety. It's the one that I said can kind of fall over because it gets growthy, but we'll see how many tillers we got here and if the nitrogen helped spur on tillering. I do have to say this field is a pretty good field. It's been a little tough the last couple years. We just haven't got manure on it, but we're hoping to get some on it this fall, because, or this summer, because we have wheat in this field. This one's a little tough. We're getting some tillering, not a lot. I would say we kind of picked up 1 to 2 per plant, just kind of looking at it. But the shovel does go into this field a lot nicer than the other one. I think that speaks to the compaction issues that I was talking about on that other farm. Here it is. We kind of just got 1 tiller for this late plant stuff. So it was planted October 27th. So 1 tiller, not ideal. But we'll hopefully with it's not pushing too bad for a second half of N, but I think just from a time and logistics standpoint, we'll get it all the wheat fields done at the same time anyways, but I think it's okay. As I said, the price on it's pretty good, but I still expect a decent yield on this stuff, and we picked up a couple tillers. And now I'll take you to the field I planted first, and we can see what tillers look like there and what we have for numbers, and the bit of the size difference as well. That right there is jokered corn stalks. This field of corn actually was our highest yielding corn, and it's going to go into white beans, which would be navy beans or something you would have as in a can called baked beans. So we're going to grow them on this field, and we never got any fall tillage done on it, and we're trying to do as much or as little tillage as we can, I should say. So we jokered it here, and what we're trying to do is actually get the corn stalks kind of knocked down and mixed up with some soil to help break down, so there's less when we come to plant. We'll plant edible beans kind of like the last week of April, first week of June. So we got some time for the corn stalks to break down, but they were just such a heavy crop of stalks because the corn yield was so good here that we had to do something, and the weather was nice and the conditions were good, so we decided to joker it there first of the week here, or not first of the week, I guess Monday or Tuesday. But yeah, so hope they rot down a little bit more so we can plant some edibles in there. So this is our first planted wheat field, and you can tell it's a little bit greener and thicker than the other ones I've been in. This was planted on our black bean field that we harvested. There's a video I did on black beans. I think the title was "What Are These?" So this is the field we did that in because it got off kind of to an early start. And here it looks like we need to probably get some nitrogen on here shortly again, because this stuff is quite a bit bigger. I don't think this variety is bad for lodging, so there's not quite the worry on it. But we'll just see what this is like for tillers. You can hear the nice healthy roots when you quite a amount of roots. So if you look at it here, you can see that there's a main stem there and that there's tillers off it, I believe. So my guess here is that we probably have about 3 tillers per plant, kind of like some of the other fields. But I think it's time to get some nitrogen on, so I think either probably tomorrow is what we're going to do there. Get some nitrogen on, start some of these fields. The only problem is that I don't know if you can see it very well, but right there, there's some purpling on the leaf. I'll try to get it focused in. Right there, there's some purpling on the leaf, and what happens in cold weather is that it can't move the sugars around the plant very well, and you get purpling in the leaves of the wheat. We're seeing a little bit more of that because of the cool temperatures we've had, where we get some growth and then it slows down and it can't move those sugars around, so we get this purpling. But it's not, it's just cosmetic, and when we get these warmer temperatures, it'll be able to move the sugars around again. The only issue we're going to run into is that kind of the leaf cuticle is what we call it, but kind of the waxy surface of the wheat leaf is going to be thin. And when it's thin like that, 28 is going to burn a little bit more than it usually does. So not ideal leaf cuticle toughness, I guess you could call it, but we're going to have to get this nitrogen out anyway. So we're going to see a little bit more leaf burn than we like to, because the 28 is a little caustic and causes burn on the leaves, but I think we'll just have to live with it. It's mostly cosmetic, it's not going to impact yield, but this wheat is farther along than the other stuff. If I pull a main stem here, you can see there's actually a couple collars on the wheat stem, leaf collars, and it's going quite well. So yeah, looking good. Looking good. So those are the various wheat fields and different stages of wheat that I have. We actually planted wheat over a month period last fall, and I think people have asked what does a winter wheat crop mean. Basically, any winter crop that we plant in the fall of, say, 2019, we would harvest it in 2020. So we call it a winter crop because it actually has to go through winter before we can harvest it the following year. So wheat has to go through this process called vernalization. And what vernalization does is it actually makes the wheat want to put a wheat head on. And if it doesn't go through that cold period, it won't put a head on. And that's why we have to plant it in the fall, so it goes through that period. So that's why it's a winter crop. And the canola, I think it's just doesn't really have to go through winter. It just helps set up for a little bit higher yield, because we're able to get it established and going sooner in the spring, because it was planted in the fall and it should equal a higher yield. So I think that's the reasoning behind winter canola. So those are kind of my winter crops that we scouted. The corn that we planted early on the 25th, everything looks good. As I said, I think we need to get the nitrogen on this wheat. I like to spray it for weeds as well. We gotta get some burn down on the soybean ground before we can plant. We got corn we need to spray. So there's lots of jobs for the sprayer, and we need to get it kind of rolling again here. So I think that's my priority list today, is get the sprayer cleaned out. If we can't spray that one last cornfield I planted before the rain, there's about 106 acres I could spray, but it's got to be done before the corn comes out of the ground. But I think we have a couple weeks, so I don't know. I'm kind of toing and froing whether I try to get it done before I do some 28 and move into spraying some burn down and some wheat. So anyways, that's kind of like a crop scouting update. Let you see what the winter canola looks like, let you see what the wheat looks like, and you can hear all the list of stuff I have to do beyond just planting crops. So lots going on the farm, and I think we'll get back to the yard and start getting back to work. Well, that wraps up the Saturday. Pretty much got Jess to roll some corn stalks across the road for me. I think she had Sandy's camera, so you might see that on Sandy's channel. And then I worked on our garden, and I think Sandy's talked about it on her channel, so I won't repeat it. But it's an ambitious project, and we just finished planting a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm going in to have a bush light, so that concludes Saturday's festivities. Tomorrow, I think we're back to planting corn. I think we'll wrap up corn this week if all goes well. But with that, we'll see you in a bit.